Emily froze in the middle of the living room, her heart pounding as Kayla waved their mother's silver bracelet in the air like a weapon. "You stole it," Kayla screamed, her face twisted with anger. "I found it in your drawer. I knew you couldn't be trusted." Emily's mouth opened in shock. "What? That's not true. I never touched it. Why would I steal Mom's bracelet?" Her voice shook, not from guilt, but from the sting of being accused. Before she could explain further, Robert's heavy footsteps echoed across the floor. Their father's face was already red with fury, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with disappointment. "Enough, Emily," he barked, his voice sharp like a slap. "How dare you steal from your sister? From your own family?" "I didn't," Emily cried, turning toward him with pleading eyes. "Dad, I swear I didn't touch it. Kayla must be." "Don't lie to me," Robert roared, cutting her off. "You've always been a problem. Always pretending to be so perfect. But this? Stealing from your sister? From your mother's things? That's low, Emily. That's shameful." The words hit her like stones. She had spent years carrying the weight of this family, and now she was standing here being painted as a thief. "Dad, please," she whispered, her throat tightening. "I wouldn't do this. I've done everything for this family since Mom died. You know me. Please believe me." But Robert's face was made of stone. "I don't want to hear another word," he snapped. "You're nothing but a liar and a disappointment. Pack your things and get out of my house. Tonight." Emily gasped, her knees almost giving way beneath her. "What?" Her voice cracked in disbelief. "You're kicking me out? Just like that? Without even listening?" "I said get out." Robert's voice thundered through the walls, final and merciless. He pointed toward the stairs. "Go. Now. Before I lose the last bit of respect I have for you." Kayla smirked from the corner of the room, her hand still clutching the bracelet as if it were proof of Emily's crime. Her younger sister's eyes glittered with victory, and that cut deeper than Robert's words. Emily's chest ached as she dragged herself upstairs. Each step felt heavy, like her body carried the weight of years of unspoken sacrifices. She stuffed clothes into a suitcase with trembling hands, her mind replaying every late shift, every bill she paid, every moment she chose responsibility over her own life. By the time she came back down, Robert stood with his arms crossed, his glare following her every move. Kayla leaned against the wall, satisfied. Emily looked at her father one last time, hoping, begging, for a sign of doubt in his eyes, something that said he believed her, deep down. But there was nothing. Only anger. Without another word, she pulled her suitcase out the front door. The night air hit her face cold and sharp. She stood on the porch, staring at the house that had once been her safe place, but now felt like a stranger's home. Her suitcase rested by her side, her pockets empty, her heart broken. 2 years of sacrifice, of holding everything together after her mother's death. And this was her reward, abandoned, accused, and thrown out by the very people she had been holding up. Emily took a shaky breath, the betrayal pressing down on her chest like a stone. For the first time in her life, she was completely alone. Emily had been hardworking since the age of 17. When her mother passed away, their small house felt emptier than ever, and her father struggled to keep things together. Robert did his best, but the long hours at the factory wore him down, and sometimes he came home with no smile, no energy, just silence. Bills piled up, groceries ran low, and the lights almost went out more than once. Emily, still a teenager then, decided she couldn't just sit by and watch. She took a part-time job at the diner down the street, serving coffee and wiping tables after school. At first, she thought it would just be a little help. Some groceries here, some gas money there. But soon her paycheck became the backbone of the family. When Robert's hours were cut, it was Emily who paid the electricity bill. When rent came due and her father didn't have enough, it was Emily who quietly slipped her wages into the envelope. By the time she turned 21, she was paying for almost everything that kept the family going. Meanwhile, Kayla, her younger sister, lived like the world owed her. At 18, she had never held a real job, never worried about bills, never skipped a meal because there wasn't enough food. Robert treated her like a princess. She always had her nails done, new shoes on her feet, and the latest phone in her hand. If she wanted something, she found a way to get it, even if it meant lying. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Kayla's reputation. She could twist a story until she looked like the victim. And somehow people always ended up believing her. Emily, on the other hand, was the opposite. She gave up things without complaint. There were nights she wanted to go out with friends, but stayed behind because the diner offered her extra shifts. She skipped buying herself new clothes so Kayla could have a nice dress for school dances. She worked late into the night, then woke up early to make sure her sister had breakfast before class. There was even a time Kayla cried about not having the right shoes for graduation. And Emily, without hesitation, spent nearly her whole paycheck on them. Kayla barely said thank you. Robert saw these things, but he never said much. Sometimes, in quiet moments, Emily thought she saw shame in his eyes. He didn't like that his daughter had taken on the role of provider. It made him feel small, less of a father. But instead of admitting it, his pride twisted into something darker, resentment. He became colder toward Emily, more distant. It was as if her hard work didn't make him proud, it made him angry. And so the household balance grew unfair. Kayla was the baby, the favorite, shielded from responsibility. Robert gave her the benefit of the doubt in every situation. Emily was the dependable one, the one who carried weight no one else wanted to carry. Yet instead of being recognized, she was treated as if her sacrifices were nothing more than expected duties. Emily often felt invisible in her own home. She longed for even the smallest sign of gratitude, a thank you, a smile, a word of acknowledgement that all she had given up mattered. But those moments rarely came. Instead, she came home to Kayla complaining about how boring life was, or Robert grumbling about bills, forgetting that those very bills had already been paid with Emily's sweat and long hours. There were nights Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer she could keep this up. She was tired. Tired of working, tired of being strong, tired of being unappreciated. Her body ached from long shifts, her mind from constant worry, but she kept pushing. She told herself she was doing it for the family, that one day they would see her efforts. But deep down, another thought whispered to her. Maybe they would never see. Maybe they would never care. And in that quiet truth, Emily felt a heavy sadness she didn't dare speak aloud. She had given so much of herself to hold her family together. Yet somehow, she was the one who felt disposable. After being kicked out, Emily dragged her suitcase down the street with no clear plan. Her heart was heavy, and her face burned from holding back tears. The night was cold, and the streetlights blurred through her watery eyes. With nowhere else to go, she called her friend Hannah, who quickly told her to come over. Hannah's small apartment was cramped, but she welcomed Emily with open arms, offering her the couch and a warm blanket. For the first time in years, Emily lay down without worrying about bills or responsibilities. But sleep didn't come easily. She kept hearing her father's voice in her head, calling her a liar, telling her to leave. The next morning, Emily sat on Hannah's sofa with a cup of tea, staring at her phone. The familiar list of bills she always paid flashed in her mind. Electricity, internet, groceries, rent. For years she had been the one to cover them, making sure the house never fell apart. Her chest tightened at the thought of Robert and Kayla depending on her paycheck while treating her like trash. Then anger rose inside her. Why should she keep paying for people who didn't even trust her? Why should she carry a family that threw her out without listening? That day, Emily made a choice. She would not send money anymore. She would not pay another bill. They had made it clear she was unwanted, so let them see how it feels without her. At first, it was quiet. A week passed, then another. Emily found part-time shifts at a nearby cafe to keep herself afloat, while Hannah helped her get by. She tried to focus on herself, but a part of her couldn't help imagining what was happening back at her father's house. The answer came one evening through whispered gossip. A neighbor who knew Hannah mentioned that Robert's house had gone dark. The electricity had been cut off. Emily's heart skipped. She pictured Kayla shouting in anger as the lights went out, Robert fumbling with candles. She almost laughed, but the sound caught in her throat. By the third week, the internet was gone too. Kayla was furious. "I can't live like this," she screamed at Robert, slamming doors and stomping through the house. "It's Emily's fault. She abandoned us." Robert's face tightened as he told her to be quiet. He repeated the same words he had told neighbors. Emily was selfish and ungrateful. She always thought she was better than us. We don't need her. But as the days dragged on, reality hit harder. Groceries became fewer. Bills piled up on the table, and the house grew emptier. Robert realized he had no idea how to keep up. His paycheck barely stretched to cover rent, let alone food and other needs. For years, Emily's quiet sacrifices had made life seem normal, and now, without her, the cracks spread fast. Emily heard about all this through whispers in the community. Some people began to question the story of the stolen bracelet, wondering if Kayla's tale was true. Emily didn't defend herself publicly, but inside, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. For the first time in years, she wasn't carrying the weight of everyone else. She could eat what she wanted without worrying if her father and sister had enough. She could buy herself a small dress or a cup of coffee without guilt. She could breathe, but freedom came with guilt too. At night, lying on Hannah's couch, Emily sometimes wondered if she had done the right thing. Robert was still her father, and Kayla, despite everything, was still her sister. A part of her heart ached knowing the house was falling apart without her help. Still, she reminded herself of that night. Her father's angry face, his harsh words, Kayla's cruel smirk. They hadn't hesitated to throw her away. So why should she keep breaking herself to keep them comfortable? Emily pressed her hand against her chest, breathing deeply. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time, she felt both guilty and liberated. The chains that had tied her to a thankless life were broken. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: Emily was finally free from carrying everyone. Robert called Emily one afternoon, his voice sharp and full of command, just like it had always been. "Emily," he said without greeting, "you need to start paying the bills again. The electricity is off, the internet is gone, and we can't live like this. You need to take responsibility." Emily pressed the phone tighter to her ear, her stomach twisting with both hurt and anger. "No, Dad," she said quietly but firmly. "I'm not paying anymore. You told me to leave. You didn't believe me when I said I was innocent. I won't carry this family on my back while you treat me like dirt." There was a pause, then Robert's voice boomed, full of anger. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I am your father. You owe this family. How can you be so selfish after all I've done for you?" Emily laughed bitterly, though tears burned her eyes. "Selfish? I've been paying your bills since I was 17. I gave up everything to make sure you and Kayla were okay. And you still chose to believe her lies over me. You called me a liar and a disappointment. Why should I keep giving when you don't even respect me?" Robert's tone grew colder. "Because we're family. Family takes care of each other." "No," Emily whispered, her heart breaking. "Family doesn't throw you out like trash." She ended the call before he could answer. From that day, the distance between them grew into a wall. Robert grew angrier and more frustrated at home, and Kayla added fuel to the fire. Kayla began spreading lies in the community. At the corner store, at church, at gatherings, she whispered to neighbors that Emily had stolen not only the bracelet but money as well. "She took from us for years," Kayla said with a convincing pout. "She acted like she was helping, but really she was keeping things for herself. That's why Dad finally kicked her out." The lies spread quickly. Soon Emily felt the sting of whispers whenever she walked down the street. Friends she had grown up with looked at her differently, with suspicion in their eyes. Even some co-workers at the cafe asked quietly if it was true. Each rumor cut her deeply, undoing years of hard work and sacrifice. One night, Hannah found her crying on the couch. "You know the truth," Hannah said gently, holding her hand. "People will see Kayla for who she really is. Just give it time." But Emily shook her head. "What if they never see? What if all they remember about me is that I was a thief? After everything I gave up, is this all I get in return?" Her voice broke and she felt smaller than ever. Days passed, and Emily began to think of practical steps. Many of the bills back at her father's house were still in her name. If Robert stopped paying them now that she wasn't helping, her credit could be destroyed. She thought about calling the companies and removing her name, or even taking legal action to protect herself. The thought of having to fight her own family in such a way broke her heart. But what choice did she have? One evening, as she sat staring at unpaid notices in her inbox, her phone buzzed. It was Aunt Linda, her mother's younger sister. Emily hesitated but answered. "Emily," Aunt Linda said softly, "I just wanted to check on you. I know things have been hard." Emily bit her lip, trying to hold back tears. "They all hate me, Auntie. They believe Kayla's lies. There was a silence on the line before Aunt Linda sighed heavily. Listen, I shouldn't be telling you this, but you deserve to know the truth. Kayla has been pawning jewelry for months now. Not just your mother's bracelet, other things too. A gold chain, earrings, even one of Robert's watches. I heard it from someone who works at the pawn shop. She goes there often. Emily's breath caught in her throat. So, it was her all along. Yes, Aunt Linda confirmed. And Robert either doesn't know or refuses to see it. He's blind where Kayla is concerned. But one day, the truth will come out. Emily thanked her aunt and hung up, her hands trembling. The revelation was like fire in her chest. On one hand, she felt relief. It proved she had been innocent all along. On the other, it fueled her anger. Her father had chosen Kayla's lies over her, even though she had carried him and Kayla for years. That night, Emily sat on the edge of Hannah's couch, staring at the floor. A storm raged inside her. She wanted to scream at Robert, to make him see how unfair he had been. She wanted to shake Kayla and demand why she could be so cruel. But most of all, she wanted to stop hurting. Her heart ached with betrayal. The father she had trusted, the sister she had sacrificed for, both had turned against her. She thought of all the times she had skipped meals so Kayla could eat, all the nights she stayed up late working to pay the bills. She thought of Robert's cold face as he told her to pack her things. Tears filled her eyes. Anger and sadness swirled together, until she couldn't tell which one was stronger. Emily had always been strong, always been the responsible one. But now, as she sat alone in the dark, she felt like a child again, small, unwanted, and unloved. Still, somewhere deep inside her, a quiet voice whispered, "You don't need them anymore. You're free now. Build your own life. Don't look back." But Emily wasn't ready to listen just yet. The wounds were still too raw, and the betrayal still too fresh. All she could do was sit in the silence, struggling with the weight of anger and heartbreak. Emily was wiping tables at the cafe when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the number looked familiar. On the other end, a calm male voice spoke. "Hello, is this Emily?" "Yes," she said, setting down the cloth. "This is James from the pawn shop on Oak Street. You left a message asking about a bracelet." Emily's breath caught. "Yes, my mother's silver bracelet. My sister accused me of stealing it." There was a pause before James continued. "I checked our records. That bracelet was pawned here 3 weeks before the date your sister accused you. The name on the slip is Kayla Roberts." Emily froze, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break her ribs. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," James confirmed. "I just thought you should know." When the call ended, Emily stood still for a long time. The truth was finally in her hands. Her sister had lied. All those tears, all the screaming, all the shame. It had been nothing but a cover for Kayla's lies. She felt anger boiling inside her, but also a strange relief. At last she had proof. That evening, Emily walked back to her father's house, the place she had once called home. The lights glowed dimly, and the yard looked unkempt. She knocked on the door, her heart racing. Robert opened it, his face hardening the moment he saw her. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "I need to talk to you," Emily said firmly. "It's important." Robert sighed and stepped aside. Inside, Kayla sat on the couch, scrolling on her phone, her expression smug as always. She barely glanced up. Emily took a deep breath and pulled out the printed copy James had emailed her. The pawn slip with Kayla's name on it. She placed it on the table in front of Robert. "Here," Emily said, her voice trembling but steady. "Proof. Mom's bracelet wasn't stolen by me. Kayla pawned it weeks before she accused me." Robert's eyes narrowed as he picked up the paper. "What is this?" "Evidence," Emily replied. "From the pawn shop itself." Kayla's face paled, but she quickly sat up. "That's not true. She's lying again, Dad. She probably made that paper herself." But Robert kept staring at the slip, his hands shaking slightly. "Kayla," he said slowly, "is this true?" Kayla's eyes darted between them. "No. I swear. She's setting me up. You know how she is, always making herself look innocent while blaming me." Emily clenched her fists. "Dad, think. I've been working since I was 17 to keep this house standing. Do you really believe I'd steal from you? From Mom's memory? Kayla has lied so many times before, and you always take her side." "Enough," Robert barked, his voice rising. I won't have you coming in here, accusing your sister. Emily's chest burned. No, Beth. You won't have me because you never did. You never saw me. I gave up my life for this family. I skipped school trips, friends, clothes, everything, just so you and Kayla could live comfortably. I worked double shifts to pay the bills while you looked at me like I was a burden. And when Kayla pointed her finger at me, you didn't even hesitate. You threw me out like I was nothing. Her voice cracked, tears rolling down her face, but she pressed on. Do you know how it feels to be abandoned by the people you bled for? To be called a thief after sacrificing everything? The room was thick with silence. Robert opened his mouth, but Kayla suddenly broke. I'm sorry, she shouted, her voice shaking. It's true. I pawned the bracelet. I was scared you'd find out about the other things I sold, so I blamed Emily. I didn't think it would go this far. Emily's stomach turned. Hearing it out loud made her knees weak. Robert's face fell, the color draining as he looked at Kayla in disbelief. You lied, he whispered. Kayla burst into tears. I didn't mean for it to ruin everything. I just didn't want you to hate me. Robert stumbled back into his chair, holding his head in his hands. His breath came in ragged gasps as the weight of the truth sank in. He had betrayed the wrong daughter, the one who had given him everything. Emily stood tall, her heart aching but her voice steady. Do you see now, Dad? All these years I've carried this family, and all it took was one lie from her for you to destroy me. Robert looked up at her, tears in his eyes. Emily. No, she shook her head firmly. Don't. It's too late. I'm not moving back in. I'm not paying the bills. I'm done being the one who saves everyone. You chose to believe Kayla. You chose to throw me out. Now you live with that choice. Her voice cracked again, but she refused to let it break her. For once in my life, I'm choosing me. The house was silent except for Kayla's sobs and Robert's quiet breathing. Emily turned, opened the door, and stepped out into the night. The cool air touched her face, carrying with it a strange mix of pain and freedom. Behind her, the house stood heavy with regret and broken trust. Ahead of her, the world waited, uncertain, but hers at last. Emily wiped her tears, lifted her chin, and walked away. This time, she would not look back. Emily finally got her own small apartment. It wasn't big, and the furniture was secondhand, but it was hers. For the first time in her life, she had a space where she could close the door and feel safe. She continued working at the cafe, adding extra shifts when she could, and slowly began to rebuild herself. The quiet evenings in her own place gave her time to think, to rest, and to heal from all the pain she had carried for so long. At first, it felt strange not to send money home. There were nights when guilt crept in, whispering that she had abandoned her family. But then she would remember the way Robert had thrown her out, and how Kayla had lied without shame. She reminded herself that she had done more than enough. Now it was time to live for herself. Meanwhile, things at Robert's house were falling apart. Without Emily's steady help, the bills stacked up quickly. Electricity was cut off more than once, and Robert often came home to find Kayla complaining about the lack of food or internet. He tried to manage, but his paycheck was never enough. Slowly, he began to see the truth. Emily had been the one keeping the house standing all along. Kayla's mask also began to slip. Friends who once admired her started to distance themselves. Word about the pawn shop and her lies spread through the community. People whispered behind her back, and some openly confronted her. Her reputation was ruined, and even her closest friends stopped trusting her. For someone who loved attention, the silence and cold stares were a punishment she couldn't escape. Robert, too, faced the weight of his choices. Each time he struggled to pay the rent, he remembered how easily Emily had taken care of it. Each time Kayla cried about losing another friend, he thought about how cruelly they had treated Emily. Regret settled deep in his chest, but pride kept him from calling right away. Emily, on the other hand, was changing. She began saving money, not for anyone else, but for her own future. She bought herself small things she had once denied. New shoes, a dress, even flowers for her apartment. She met new people through work, built friendships outside her family, and started to laugh again. Her heart still carried scars, but every day they hurt a little less. One evening, as she sat on her balcony with a cup of tea, Emily thought about the past. She remembered all the nights she had stayed up worrying about bills, all the times she gave up her own needs for Kayla and Robert. And now she realized she was free. She didn't need their approval anymore. She didn't need to carry their weight. When Robert finally did call, asking for help, Emily's voice was calm and steady. "I can't do that anymore," she told him. "I'm not your safety net. I have my own life now. You and Kayla will have to figure things out yourselves." There was silence on the other end of the line, and for once, Emily didn't feel guilty. She felt strong. Kayla faced her own lessons, with her lies exposed and her reputation broken. She was forced to live with the consequences of her choices. No one rushed to defend her anymore. Even Robert couldn't protect her from the truth. And Emily? She finally found peace in choosing herself. Each step she took in her new life was a step toward healing, toward freedom, toward becoming the woman she was meant to be. For the first time in years, Emily didn't feel invisible. She felt seen by herself. And that was enough. Robert showed up at Emily's door one evening, his shoulders slumped and his eyes heavy with regret. He looked older, weaker, and nothing like the proud, angry man who had thrown her out. When Emily opened the door, he removed his cap and held it in his hands like he didn't know what else to do. "Emily," he said quietly, his voice trembling. "I was wrong. I failed you as a father. I should have believed you. I should have seen all the sacrifices you made. Instead, I turned against you when you needed me the most. I don't expect you to forgive me right now, but I needed to say it. I'm sorry." Emily stood there in silence, her chest tight. A part of her had waited so long to hear those words. Yet another part of her still carried the wounds he had left. "I hear you, Dad," she said softly. "But forgiveness doesn't come so easily. Healing takes time. And I need space to find myself again. I can't go back to the way things were." Robert nodded, his eyes wet. "I understand," he whispered, and for the first time, Emily believed he truly did. She closed the door gently after he left, leaning against it for a moment. Instead of feeling weighed down, she felt lighter. She realized she no longer needed his approval, or anyone's, to feel whole. Walking back into her little apartment, Emily looked around at the life she was building for herself. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She curled up on the couch, a quiet smile spreading across her face. For the first time, she wasn't living for others. She was living for herself. And that was enough. EBUBE. Two Hearts, thanks so much for sticking with me till the end. Don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button for more. See you next time. Sparkles.